This is a book review of Planet of the Apes Omnibus. This is by Daryl Gregory, Carlos Magno and Diego Barreto. Obviously a variety of other people as well. And this book came out in 2018. I'm just going to quickly show the rest of the credits there because I've got it. Now, just heard a bit of a creak there with the glue. It opens okay, I'm going to have to say, but it's I prefer obviously a proper super duper omnibus edition where it's really nicely sewn and all that sort of stuff. But this is glued, and you can see there. It opens, the gutter's reasonable. You can see all of the comic book, so I've no problem particularly with this. The artwork is great all the way through. And there's 512 pages. Sadly, no page numbers. One of the things that I always love is page numbers in books, because then you can always turn to page, oh, you know what, there was a great bit of the story on page 400. Well, where's 400? You have to go and search for it. Obviously, you could write it in. That would be a good way of doing it. However, I love the artwork all through. There was a variety of different artists, or certainly different inkers applied to maybe the same artist. I don't know. It's always very hard to tell sometimes with this thing. I'm not the world's greatest when it comes to artist sort of spotters but the work definitely changes a bit further at the back. You can see the style completely changes. However, this is still it's about the size of a standard comic book. Yeah, I'm just going to quickly go and get a comic book just to compare. And after saying that, I assume, yep, exactly. So it is a standard size comic book. So the pages have not been changed from the comic book. So put that over there. And the colouring is fine. It's quite dark. So it's a lot of, now I'm just going to show some pages of the story so you can see the story there. Lots of bits of walking around underground parts of the Skin Town or South Town. There's a lot of politics as well involved in this story, where lots of people backwards and forwards, all the various political between the apes, the humans, etc. Obviously lots of conflict, you can see that. I don't think I'm giving any spoilers away. There's a lot of battles in this, lots of violence. Having a massive gorilla hurtling towards you with an axe or various other influence would be quite scary. So obviously the humans, etc., battle all the way through that. And I think it says Planet of the Apes. Of course, it's not strictly true at this point. It's Planet of the Apes plus humans. But obviously the title will be a bit unwieldy at that point. But the story also goes over quite a long period of time. There's 6 stories involved in this. And, well, at the start of the book, there's an uneasy piece, as it says here, but a new golden age. However, life is a bit rougher than it's a sort of, I wouldn't say medieval, because of course there's lots of, obviously, some technology from our age, but clearly most of the people don't really know how to use it. Clearly they're surprised when they get something, wow, this new. So there's quite ripples of dissent are all spread in both ape and human ranks. And there's a couple of really good characters in this. I love the general in this, General Nix, and obviously the mayor's pretty good character. And there's some really decent storylines running through this. And it certainly gives you a lot to think about our own times. And certainly that's, of course, part of the story. But it's well done all the way through. And initially I thought, oh, I'm not going to enjoy this. I mean, I've started with Planet of the Apes from the period of the Marvel comics, one of the films and all those sort of things. So when I came to this, it's quite radically different from what I was expecting. And I'd read none of the Planet of the Apes comics. This is from Boom Studios. Obviously the comics are there. I think you can find them at comic conventions and obviously online. So, but it's obviously nice to get them in this sort of lovely, great form. And there's a couple of other omnibus editions now. I'm not certain about the omnibus editions, how they relate to this one. So, but the artwork is fine all the way through. There's some great story there. You've got character there, and I'm going to show you quickly that obviously without any spoiler, yeah, just as good as anything without really giving anything away there. So you can see the artwork does vary, so it's not consistent all the way through in terms of art, but you can see from that it is very dark, very dark. Now I'm not a fan of super dark inking, but it was very easy to read. It jumps occasionally. There's quite a few stories in this, so I'm just going to go right to the front, and you can see there at the front, you can see the breakdown. There's the Long War, the Devil's Pawn, Children of Fire, the Half Man, and Utopians, etc., etc. So it breaks down in the stories and something just suddenly jumps in the storyline, which is a bit jarring at times, but it's not one continuous period. It does sort of, and the characters move on a bit in the storyline. But I think it's beautifully done, and there's some really odd bits in this. It's interesting seeing their worlds with all the clothes are similar to ours, but obviously a bit rougher around the edges, and sort of medieval feel to it at times as well. It is brutal. It's a brutal book throughout. Lots of fire, action, obviously swords, fighting, not swords, arrows, and those sort of things. Actually, yeah, there are swords. There are swords. I must admit, it didn't come sort of. If you come into it from like Conan or something, whereas it's all predominantly swords, there is a lot of obviously guns and all that sort of stuff, as well as other instruments of war. So this book is absolutely fine. Like I say, start, I was a bit, but I was won over by the end. I must admit, I sort of started to get wrapped up in the story, and I found it really, really, genuinely very enjoyable by the end. And again, I don't want to, you can see, again, still a lot of dark artwork, but absolutely easy to read, great panel construction all the way through, composition, and it's just superb, thoroughly brilliant. Now I'm just going to go to the back of the book, and I'm not going to show the end, of course, don't want to spoil that. However, there is an afterword, which is always quite nice to have, as well as, of course, other information. And then, I mean, I love books to have a lot more than this, of course, but it's perfectly reasonable. So now, next thing to do, I've also got some variant covers. Obviously, this is a popular thing, variant covers with all the different. Personally, I'm not a fan of variant covers, but of course, it's nice that they've collected them all in this, certainly a number of them anyway. It's always hard to say whether they're all of the variant covers, because I didn't follow the series, so I have no idea. But I guess, and also at the back, you've got an advert for Discover Visionary Creators, and there's just a bit of a list, obviously, of a number of other Boom Studio books. And I think there's a nice selection of ones: Strange Fruit, Irredeemable, Hexed, Wild's End, Spire, and The Woods. So, yeah, thoroughly enjoyable book, and see Planet of the Apes. And so there's two other books. How they relate to this, I do not know, I have to say. It's one of those things that, but I will find out at some point, because I've ordered them, so I will be checking them out after reading this. Thoroughly enjoyed this, so I thought must get the other two books as well. So I will do reviews of those fairly shortly. So Planet of the Apes Omnibus from Boom Studios.